If you hear a baby, there is a 2-month-old and a 4-year-old upstairs. So don't mind it. Everyone knows. So I currently live with my boyfriend's family, and so everyone knows not to come down here. But the 4-year-old has tended to come down here when she hasn't been supposed to. So if a 4-year-old comes down, we're gonna embrace it, and yeah. So I have a presentation that I'm gonna go off of, and then there is time at the end for Q&A as well. So let's see. Can you all see my screen? Perfect. I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger. So I decided to title this "Oh, the Places You'll Go." And I go from all the way from my freshman year of college all the way through to what I'm doing now to show you all the different places that you can go. I didn't realize how much I traveled as an undergrad and even into grad school until I put this presentation together. So this is just a brief overview of what I'm going to be covering. So I'm going to give you a little bit more of an intro, talk about my college years, grad school, what I'm currently doing, Q&A, and then give you my email address. So hello, everyone. My name is Jessie Conklin. I use she, her pronouns. I am a first-generation college graduate twice. So the middle-ish picture that you see, that's my family. I'm the youngest out of 3. The little small child is my brother's daughter. That is my niece. She's going to be 7 on Halloween. And the other picture is my boyfriend of 6 years at my master's graduation. Unfortunately, where I went to grad school was about 15 hours away from my parents, and so they were not able to come down for graduation, but my boyfriend moved down with me, and so he was there for me at graduation. As I said, for my son, Ye, I'm originally from Green Bay, but I'm currently living in the Twin Cities area. So, going on to my first year of college, I worked as a desk assistant in one of the residence halls, and I worked as a student assistant in the dean's office in one of the colleges. It was my first time truly away from my family for a long period of time. And being first generation, in high school, I was part of Upward Bound. So if you know TRIO, I was part of Upward Bound. I got accepted into student support services, but at that time at my undergrad campus, student support services was going through a lot of change. And so even though I was living on campus, I had 2 jobs and I had student support services, I still didn't feel connected to campus. And so because of a lot of different reasons, and where I went to undergrad was 4.5 hours away from my family, my GPA suffered. I openly talk about this all the time, that I had a 2.2 GPA. I had 2 Ds for the first time in my life. And so that really took a toll on me. But what I was missing was involvement. And so spring of my freshman year, I was accepted into what's called LEAD. It was basically like a leadership experience at my undergrad. And I got involved with that, started volunteering. And so because if you all have taken theory, like Aston's theory of involvement, you will see that is me to a T. My GPA started increasing. I started liking campus. I won First Year Student of the Month. If you are in Res Life, you know of the month awards. I didn't know what that was. So the lower picture of me with my head shaved, that is why I won First Year Student of the Month, is because I shaved my head. And so I learned slowly a little bit about what the National Residence Hall Honorary was, but I was thoroughly confused as when I got this certificate and mug in my mailbox, because I was like, I don't know what this is. To going into my second year, that is when my life started changing at River Falls, where I got more involved. So I started working actually for the TRIO program, and I was still working as a desk assistant. But then one day at the desk, I got an invite to apply to Glucker. I did not even know how to say Glucker. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how they got my email, but I was like, talked to my hall director, and she's like, oh yeah, I think you'll like it. I think you'll enjoy it. And so I decided to apply. I got accepted and rode a bus down to Indiana State Halloween weekend to attend Glucker. So that stands for the Great Lakes Affiliate of College and University Residence Halls. And so as soon as we got to Indiana State, we were greeted by someone who represented the state of Wisconsin. And I was like, that'd be really cool to be here one day, like in the back of my mind, but I didn't really know how I would get there. or anything like that. And so went throughout the conference, really liked the person who was in charge of us as like students. Like we had an advisor, but the student leader that was in charge of us, I really liked his job. And so the next semester, I became the National Communications Coordinator in training. I was able to be inducted into the National Residence Hall Honorary, and this is also where I first had my big trips. So I joined Students Today Leaders Forever, and so I traveled from Wisconsin through 5 different cities. I tried to remember, I couldn't find my shirt to like put them all, but I made my way all the way from Wisconsin to Atlanta, Georgia. And so that was just a little bit of the traveling I did there. And then by the end of my sophomore year, as you can see in the picture, I won Student of the Year because of all my hard work as the National Communications Coordinator in training. My 3rd year, I continued to increase my involvement even more. So I added orientation as an orientation leader. So go NODA. I think that's really great that you get to go to that. And so I added that. I joined a sorority. I was a tour guide. I was a part-time coach for about 2 months for student support services while they struggled to find and fill in. But all of that going on, and I also was fully National Communications Coordinator, and I also had an exec board position within the National Residence Hall Honorary. So all of that going on, I made Dean's List for the first time. So that was really exciting for me to have that honor. The next time I traveled, again, spring break, this time from Wisconsin to Washington, D.C. So that was really cool because that was a place that I really, really wanted to go. Over the course of my sophomore year, is at the end of my freshman year, when I was involved in LEAD, I was like, Anna's job would be really cool, but I didn't know the label of student affairs at that time. And so throughout my sophomore year, as I got to know Res Life and like the people in residence life, they told me about Stars College and they told me about the Kuhuai internship. And so I decided to apply for my junior year, going into my senior year summer. I was accepted to both, which when I got accepted to Stars College, I cried because I really didn't think that I would get accepted. I was, as you can see, up to this point, I was never an RA. And so I really didn't think it was even a question of me getting accepted because I thought, well, you have to be an RA for that. You have to have higher positions than what I had. But I got accepted. And so I was able to go to Seattle, Washington for that. And then for my Kuhuai internship, I actually had 2 offers. The first was to go to Brown University to be one of 100 RAs, or I could be the only intern at Fort Hays State University. And I chose Fort Hays State University, which sometimes I wonder like what my summer would have been like if I would have chose Brown. But I chose Fort Hays. And so had that for my internship to my senior year, wrapping things up at River Falls. I got to be on the regional board of directors for Glucker, and that was life-changing. Like I said, I didn't know how I'd get there. Well, I got there. So I had that position my senior year. I originally was not an RHH president going into my senior year either. I applied and gave a speech, and I thought I was going to get it, and I didn't. And so that really hurt a lot. Like I applied for a state position within housing as an organization, and I didn't get that, and I didn't get president. And so I really started questioning if I wanted to go into student affairs. And so November of my senior year, there was a lot of things that happened in my housing department, and I ended up becoming president of NRHH. And so that was super exciting. I continued being an orientation leader, continued my involvement with my sorority, and then it came to applying to grad school. And so the 2 grad schools that I really considered were Central Michigan University and then St. Cloud State University. So I applied to both. I heard back from Central Michigan that I got accepted into the program. And so I knew February that I was flying there. No, it was March, sorry. In March, I was flying there for a 2-day interview. And then I never heard anything from St. Cloud. And so I kind of banked on OPE in a way, so the Oshkosh Placement Exchange, of helping me determine where I wanted to go to grad school. And I really didn't know what assistantship I wanted to go for. Obviously, I had a lot of housing experience in student organizations, but I really didn't know. And so I went to OPE, interviewed with Fort Hays and several other schools. And even going into OPE, I was like, I don't really want to go back to Fort Hays at all. And so came out and had a on-campus interview offer for Oakland University, which is in Michigan, and then a second round interview with Fort Hays. I knew I had a strong chance just because I had an internship with Fort Hays that previous summer, that I had a strong inkling that I'd get an offer there, which I did. I didn't get an offer at Oakland, and so my decision was kind of made for me of where I was going to go to grad school. And so graduated with my Bachelor's of Science in Communication Studies, and then went back to Fort Hays for grad school. And so if you don't know where Fort Hays is, it is halfway between Denver and Kansas City in Kansas. And so moved down there for 2 years. Originally, when I accepted my offer to go there, I was the grad assistant for Inclusion, Diversity, Excellence. And so while I was there, I learned that I was the first grad assistant for that position, because as soon as I walked in for my very first day, the director was also setting up her office the first day. At least I had prior knowledge of the campus, and so I knew, for example, where the quad was. My director did not know where the quad was. And so it made it a very difficult transition into grad school, and then having a supervisor who didn't really know campus either. And so I actually ended up switching graduate assistantships in November of 2017. So I was in diversity for about 4 months. I want to say it was from July to November, and then switching to career services. And that is where I found what functional area I really thrive in. And so with diversity, it was a lot of program planning. It was big picture. It wasn't really working with students, where career services was hands-on working with students. And so anyway, so flash forward, working in career services. I also at the time was a TPE ambassador, which then, similar, if you haven't heard, with GAP, you also get to apply for the annual conference for NASPA. And so I applied to be a TPE intern. I was accepted. And so if you ever get bored, you can find my application. I actually made an Instagram page for that. And so I was able to go to Philadelphia. That is our group picture. I know I saw someone from Old Dominion, Clarissa, who is in the front row. I don't know if you guys can see my arrow. This is Clarissa. She went to Old Dominion, just as an example. And so I was able to do that. And then the summer between my first and second year, I also had one of my first practicums in the Academic Advising and Career Exploration Center at Fort Hays. In my second year, so I continued as the graduate assistant in career services, but a little bit of a twist, where my first year is really focusing on marketing and hands-on with students, where my second year I actually helped build an internship program. And so that was really my big focus for my second year. I was a NASPA 4 West intern, and so I was on site for that. Obviously, I was part of GAP. That's why I'm here. I also published an article for NASPA, so I can send that to you guys if you're interested, but it just really talks about technology and how I use that in my role for TPE and the internship that I had. I went back to residence life for my practicum for my fall practicum, and then I didn't need to do this, but this was me thinking of where I was moving back to. So as I said, I'm in the Twin Cities now. This is where my boyfriend is originally from. And so I knew by basically before I even moved down to grad school and at Fort Hays that I was moving back here. I have more job opportunities here. This is where I feel most at home. And so I took it upon myself to have an independent internship that helped build the bridge between my graduate program and the technical college that's in Hays itself. And so I focused more on career stuff. And so like I planned a career fair. And so if you're on NASPA Gap page, you can see that was my takeover, was the career fair day that I planned by myself. Was just one big project. And so the top picture right here, this was most of the staff that I worked with, the full-time staff in career services. And so I graduated with my master's technically in July, which kind of destroyed me at first because don't push off papers. Don't do it. Don't let the job search, don't let moving get to you. Finish out. You're in school for a reason. Focus on school. I did not. And so that is why I graduated in July. I take full ownership of that. This picture right here of my parents and I, again, they didn't come down, so that was their mini graduation party for me. And so my master's is in higher education, with a master's of science in education with an emphasis in higher education and student affairs. And then with my program, I had the option to earn a certificate in Title IX. And I was like, yeah, why not? Like, it's only 2 extra classes. And mind you, like, I was still trying to figure out, like, first class that I took with it was technically my first semester, but then my second semester of grad school. And so I was still trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to do. But the certificate I knew was going to help unlock more doors later on down the road. And so I also have a certificate pending when it gets delivered in Title IX. I'm still waiting for it. And so now what I'm doing is I'm actually in AmeriCorps. I work for a company, a nonprofit called College Possible. And so there are 7 locations throughout the U.S. The headquarters is right here where I'm living in St. Paul, Minnesota. And so I let the job search get to me. So whoever said they have a job interview tomorrow, I was there last year. I applied super early. And with my program, like, I had the flexibility where I could have gone online and, like, if I would have gotten it, it would have been okay. But I pulled the trigger really early to accept a job because I was really worried I wasn't going to get a job. And so, but, like, I don't regret it. It's okay. So as an AmeriCorps, right now, my position title is a Tech Connected College Coach. And there's 2 sides of College Possible where students apply their technically their sophomore year of high school to get in for their junior year. And they work ACT prep their junior year. And then their senior year, they work on college applications. And then once they're accepted into college, then that's where I take over as a Tech Connected College Coach. So I'm helping them navigate different milestones from filling out the FAFSA. So if you're first year filling out your FAFSA for next year, it's already open, to helping them register for classes, knowing what resources are on their campus. This can be a little bit difficult depending on what you're assigned. So there are on-campus coaches, but being tech connected, I think last time I counted, I have 8 different campuses. I have 3 within the Twin Cities Metro, and then I have a bunch of West Coast schools as well. And so that can be a little bit difficult to know sometimes what are on the campus, but I have a spreadsheet and, like, I'm slowly working through it right now of finding their resources. Absolutely. We can definitely connect on LinkedIn. So I just wanted to pull in the competencies really quick to show you that, like, I am still, even though I'm not directly working at a campus, I'm still connecting the competencies. The competencies were very important in my graduate program. I had to do a large project, and if you ever want to see the website, you can, of how I met the foundational, sometimes the intermediate and advanced for the NASPA competencies. And so I just pulled in a few of professional and ethical, of how meeting where the students are at, knowing my biases, law policy, knowing the difference between public, private, for-profit, because I do have students at all of them. Tech, obviously, because I'm connecting with them via technology. So I don't know if you all have ever discussed it in your programs, but we did a lot of what should, as a student affairs practitioner, should you connect with students, like adding them on Facebook and things like that. And so for my position with College Possible, we have a completely separate social media account. And so I have a separate Facebook account. I probably won't do an Instagram just because I'm connecting with them. I'm talking to them on the phone. We're texting. So I have a separate Google Voice number as well that students can call and text me at as well. And then advising and supporting, so getting to know, building rapport with students and getting to know their different lived experiences and how that's different from mine. So that's me. I would really love any questions that you all might have.
Jessie, thank you so much for sharing that. I think one of the things that really stuck out to me in your presentation is just a continued knowledge that as a first-generation student on a campus, so for those of you who are first-gen students on this call or who are working with first-gen students, how unfamiliar so many things are. And I think that that is a really important thing to remember as you sort of are working with undergrads, for those of you who are working with undergraduate students, but even those of you who are within your cohorts. You know, some people are the first in their families to get anything beyond a bachelor's degree. And I think that that says a lot and means a lot for people to sort of, you know, I think we sometimes take for granted, for those of us who are not first generation students, just how like, oh, well, yeah, of course that's how it works in a classroom, or of course that's what's expected. But things like balancing working full time, or being a parent, or having one, if not like multiple side hustles in addition to your main job, plus your assistantship. I mean, those things are really not, nobody talks about those like in K through 12. Like nobody prepares you in high school for navigating all those different potential what ifs that happen. So Jessie, thank you so much for sharing that. I think that that's really important. Could you just really quickly, with AmeriCorps, can you talk a little bit, you know, a lot of people, especially as, you know, people are talking about getting ready for TPE, if you're a second year student, just like finessing up your resume. AmeriCorps is not an always common space where people go, because I don't know if people really know what AmeriCorps maybe is and how it can be connected to the work that you're doing in higher ed, or the work that you may be interested in from a functional area standpoint. So can you give us just a little bit more background on AmeriCorps, and not so much like a sales pitch, but, you know, basically doing something not on a college campus as maybe many of your cohort mates maybe went into, and what was that like? What are some of the pros and cons that came along with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So getting back to your first part, I thought I would know how to navigate college because I had Upward Bound, but I had no idea what it was really like. And so even though I had that support, I still didn't know what I was getting into. As far as AmeriCorps goes, so think of it, if you've all ever heard of the Peace Corps, think of it just like the Peace Corps, but here in America. And so there's a bajillion, not really, but there's a lot of different positions available through AmeriCorps. And so how I'm seeing it is I am still working with students. I'm still connecting them to resources on their campus. And I've actually been able, so with being tech connected, usually you don't go to the office or the campus that you serve, but I have the great fortune that my supervisor is more than happy to send us out. And so I've actually been able to go to 2 out of the 3 schools that I have here in the metro to meet with students. Now, that's not saying that they'll meet with me necessarily, like I would hope they would, just because like one of the schools that I have, I was just at this past Wednesday, and no one showed up. I have over 50 students there, and no one showed up, which was really, really hard. But I was able to connect more with the TRIO office there. 1, to network and be like, hey, think of me a year, but also 2, to like know more about the students, what would work better for those students, of is there a better location to meet at, if that makes sense. And so depending on the AmeriCorps position that you have, I really see the value, and there are ties still to student affairs. I do miss sometimes being on a college campus, not gonna lie. The first day, the first college campus I went to, it was the first time I was at that campus, and I was like, holy crap, I'm like a freshman all over again. I don't know where to go. I don't know where to sit. A lot of people thought I was still in school. I had my backpack, so like I really fit in. One, because I wanted to look like I fit in, but two, like I just look really young, I think. So a lot of people, when they find out in this position that I have my master's, they question me of why I decided to do it. And honestly, I just wanted to get more experience here because I knew I was moving back here. And so I wanted to break through that way and have connections that way.
Are there any, oh, Danielle has a question for you.
So are you talking, Danielle, are you talking currently with the NASPA competencies or in grad school?
Hi, Jesse. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so I'm actually not sure. I just thought that that was really cool how at the end of the presentation, you talked about the different NASPA competencies and how they lined up with your undergrad and graduate school experience. I was just wondering if that was planned out or did you just kind of like compile everything and you're like, oh, this ties into this. I just wanted to know more about that. I'm thinking that may be something really useful for me to just kind of like reflect on and see if I can kind of match something like that up for myself. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. So for this presentation, it was totally planned that I talk about the competencies only because I wanted to really tie it back to NASPA as well. And so I wanted to tie it back that way. I didn't know what NASPA was as an undergrad. I really wish I did because I would have applied to be enough and like gone through that path. But I really found out about NASPA as a grad student. And so, like I said, my program was heavily like competency based. Here, actually, let me see. Hold on. Actually, hold on. I'm going to try to pull up my website so you can see it really quick. I'm still getting used to Ring Central. Not that one. How do I share again? This is really embarrassing. I'm so sorry, y'all. There we go. The green button, Jesse. All right. Nope. That's that. Okay. Can you all see my website now? Okay. So this is what I had to create as my end. We called it our culminating learning demonstration. And so I have a resume on here for the job that I actually applied for last year at this time. Cover letter, position description, so like my committee knew what I was doing. Dedication page, this was all like we card as part of my program. And then projects is actually where you can see each of the competencies and what I did. So I have an artifact that shows that shows it, and then I break it down and like talk about how I met that foundational outcome, if that makes sense. So it was definitely reliant on my program of using the NASPA competencies.
Are there any other questions that anyone wants to ask? Or Jesse, like I mentioned, earlier, you talked a little bit about some of the pros and cons of sort of not going directly to an on-campus job. But what's your plan after AmeriCorps? Are you planning on looking for an on-campus position, or are you thinking of sort of continuing on in education, but maybe in that non-traditional sense?
That's a loaded question. So with College Possible, with my current position, I have the option to do 2 years of the role. And so I am currently debating what I would like to do. I may stick around for 2 years, but I also found out the reason why I'm tech connected is because I have experience in career services, which is an area that College Possible wants to grow in. And so depending on what happens, if I can persuade them to hire me full time to oversee that person, I think that would be a lot of fun. I would also really like a shorter drive to work and not drive in the big city. And so if I could work at the community college here in the town that I live in, that would be also great. But I'm just going to see how this year goes and when I have to officially let them know when, like, if I'm going to come back for year 2 or not. I'm really just going to see how that looks and then decide from there. I know hiring timelines, for those of you going to TP, it's February and March. I accepted this job in January. And so, like, early January, right after the holidays. And so I'm just going to see what happens.
Yes, it sounds like you have a lot. So I would really encourage all of you to get connected with Jessie. Jessie, I don't know if you want to go ahead and type in, one, I think this website is great if you want to share that with everybody on here in the chat. And that way we can also have this for when I send this recording out to those who join us this evening. But I encourage all of you to get connected to Jessie. One, because I think sometimes it's nice to see that many of you have had very similar journeys. And I know that student affairs sometimes feels like sort of everybody is sort of photocopied and everybody's sort of doing the same thing. But one of the nice things I think about the GAP program and about student affairs in general is that everybody, even though you have some similarities going on, came about things in some different ways. And so it's sometimes just nice to hear those stories. And Jessie, thank you so much for taking the time to put this together and to share this with us. Like I said, I think there's a lot of things that stuck out to me very much that were both positive and really exciting to see just how well you were able to overcome a lot of those fears coming into a college space and coming into a graduate space. And now you're navigating your career space, I think, in a really great way. And I too think that not having a really long commute is, I work from home remotely, but prior to this, I was commuting into DC, which doesn't seem like a big deal because from the map, I'm like less than 10 miles away, but that can, in DC traffic, is like a 2-hour commute, depending on when you go in. So
I'm very lucky. Well, lucky and unfortunate that I share a car with my boyfriend, and so depending on what time he wants to go to work, because he has a pretty flexible schedule as well, and so it can make some long days where I'm in the office sometimes from 8 to 8.
yeah.
But it's totally worth it.
Well, I certainly wish you luck as you sort of continue to navigate that. Oh, yes, in the article on there, please feel free to just reach out to Jessie individually if you have any specific questions. Again, thank you to those of you who joined us this evening, because I think it's really great to hear stories of how people sort of got to different places where they are. And Steph, you mentioned that you were also in AmeriCorps, which is great. So for those of you who have those connections, I think it's wonderful to get you all connected to one another. And for those of you who are thinking about that job search and sort of thinking about that next step, I will say, I definitely relate to the being on campus part. And whenever I go back to campus, like I'm getting ready in like 2 weeks to go to my alma mater for our homecoming. And I know I'm going to get all like weepy face and I'm going to see all these people and like campus paraphernalia and I'm going to really miss it. And then I'm going to remember that there are definitely pros and cons to sort of working in those traditional spaces. And I am very thankful and grateful and very happy in the space that I get to be in now, supporting all of you and supporting student affairs professionals. But I definitely know that feeling of like a bit of FOMO, like something's happening on campus and like all of your friends on Facebook are posting about like, what's happening, with what events they're doing. And I have a lot of friends still who are working on campus and, they're like, oh, it just became AVP this week, like just like casually throwing that out there. And I'm like, like your career is doing all these great things. And you do sometimes feel like, if I stayed on campus, where would I be now? And like, what would I do? But not every path is the same for everybody. So I hope for those of you who are getting ready and geared up for that internship and that job search that you definitely look to the spaces that make sense for you, but don't be afraid to sort of look outside of that box and search for interconnected ways that you can still use those skills that you are learning and using every single day in the work that you're doing right now, to translate into something that could be really beneficial, that's maybe a little bit outside of what you intended things to be. But Jessie, any parting words for our gaps as they continue on with the rest of their week and their futures and all of those bright, beautiful things?
Absolutely. Let me know how I can help. So I put my Facebook, I put my article on my website, my LinkedIn. Reach out. I am more than happy to help you all. If it's looking at resume, yes, you should go to your career services office. Plug, but I will also help you with that. I am known to butcher resumes, so if you have a design or something like that, like I want to help you with that. I'm more than happy to help you with that. In the job search and whatever that might look like for you. And so you can do it. Like I said, don't push off your homework. Just get it done. Focus on school. Even though I moved, the reason I didn't focus on school, I moved the day of graduation. I literally ran out, hood, cap, running to my car to move back to Minnesota. And so don't worry about being on campus and finishing out.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for joining us this evening. Have a wonderful week. And even if your week is looking a little bit rough and your Google Calendar looks like it has not enough space for free time, make sure you make time for that, even if it's 5 minutes. So thanks everybody. Jessie, thank you so much for joining us this evening and sharing your journey with us. And I hope you all connect. And I'll be sure to, if you didn't have a chance to save these links or if you're on the phone, I'll be sending out a copy of this recording along with those links that Jessie shared in a follow-up email sometime this week. So thanks everybody. Have a great rest of your evening and have a good upcoming week.
Bye everyone. Thanks for coming.
Bye y'all.